dreadful, dangerous, and deluded. Even worse than Nikita Mazepin,
What Mazepin is doing, honestly.
Yuji Ide, Taki Unoi, and probably even Latifi. Considered by many, I'd even say considered by most, to be the worst driver of all time. From the slowest qualifying laps in history to mistakes like these, and some of the funniest moments in motorsport history. And of course, getting banned indefinitely. This is the story of the one, the only, the legendary Mahavir Raghunathan. I just want to get one thing out the way first. I'm going to be calling him Lord Mahavir a bit in this video, not because he's actually a lord or came from royalty or anything. He actually came from a pretty modest background. It's not because of his brilliant performances either. It's actually more the opposite. I'll get into that story a bit later, because first, we need some context about his rise up the motorsports ladder. Feels a bit weird calling it a rise, but stick with me. He was born in Chennai in India in 1998. Chennai happens to be the hometown of Karun Chadhok too, who was one of only 2 Indian drivers ever in Formula 1. The odds were almost impossible, but he gave it a go anyway. He started karting when he was 13, which is pretty late by today's standards. But then again, he also made his single-seater debut that same year. I mean, let's just think about that for a second. Karting is where you go as a young driver to learn racecraft. Mahavir did it for less than a year, and not because he was a quick learner. Maybe he left karting quickly to give the other kids a chance. Only the Lord himself knows, but he started to push himself against better opponents. That became a trend in his career, as you'll see shortly, so when he moved up to single-seaters, it was far from easy. He raced in 4 rounds of the JK Racing Asia Series, signed up for the full season of MRF F1600, and raced in the final round of the Formula Masters China Series in Shanghai. But these stories were just stepping stones, and Mahavir was about to be thrown into the deep end. The year is 2014. He was now in the Italian F4 Championship, which was won by none other than fellow racing god, Lance Stroll. If you watch my video on Lance, you'll know that he basically bought that championship, so kudos to Mahavir. At least it wasn't his daddy who crafted his entire career. And to be fair, he wasn't the worst, just yet. He finished 12th, then moved to the European F3 Championship the year after. He showed up to 33 out of the 36 races, tried his hardest, and scored a grand total of 0 points. Fair enough, the team wasn't brilliant, but when your best result of the year is a 20th, you're definitely not impressing anyone. He tried to stick with F3 machinery for a while, and competed in the first race of the 2016 GP3 series. Unsurprisingly, he didn't just turn into Senna all of a sudden, so he finished at the very back of the field, again. This somehow didn't destroy his F1 chances, because just a few years later, he surprised us all, but I'll get back to that in a little bit. Because even with his terrible pace and an extensive list of shocking results, he didn't quit. He kept chasing his racing dream, but this next move wasn't the smartest, to say the least. In 2016, he made the very strange decision to join the AutoGP Championship, which merged with the Bosch GP Championship just 1 race after he joined. I'm calling it strange because it wasn't a logical step forward on the junior ladder. In fact, it wasn't a step forward at all. Bosch GP is basically a series for amateur racers to drive some single-seaters and kid themselves into thinking they're better than they actually are. They'd be 90s F1 cars, mid-2000s GP2 cars, late 2010s Euro F3 cars, and pretty much anything else as long as it's a single-seater. It's a championship for people who are rich enough to own these cars and just want to race them for fun, so not exactly where you'd go to prove yourself to the world. The worst thing about the whole situation was that even though he was the professional driver, he still didn't win. Plus, he was driving a Lola B0552, a car that was developed 11 years prior for the A1 Grand Prix series. Junior categories have cars with similar tyres, handling, and downforce to F1 cars to get you as prepared as possible. This car definitely wasn't preparing Mahavir for anything. It was far too different and outdated compared. Anyway, his whole career made no sense, with his season in F2 being the worst by far, but I'll get onto that shortly. He raced in the Formula class for another year, which is the lowest tier in Boss GP. He managed to win the title this time with a bit of luck. Well, I should say a lot of luck actually. His nearest and pretty much only rival was Johan Ledermeyer, who missed out on 4 of the 14 rounds, basically handing the title to Mahaver. But fair enough, a win's a win. Some people thought this might give him the boost in confidence he needed, but then again, winning the Formula class in Boss GP isn't something you'd be waving around to F1, F2, or even F3 teams, because frankly, it wouldn't make any difference. But somehow, our Lord and Saviour managed to do the unthinkable. In 2018, he suddenly and mysteriously disappeared. He only competed once during that entire year, in the Le Mans Cup. Yet, against all odds, all logic, and against everything that you could possibly predict, this happened. Yep, Lord Mahaver made it to Formula 2 in 2019. I still have no idea how, to be honest, and he probably doesn't either. But I can tell you how he didn't get there though. Because it wasn't because of his pace, it wasn't because of his racecraft either, and it definitely wasn't because of his star-studded resume. Because at this point, he still had no race wins or even podiums in any professional series. None. Zero. It wasn't even obvious if he had a huge sponsor or not. But at the end of the day, MP Motorsport signed him and Jordan King for 2019. And that was that. They were no joke of a team either, because Felipe Drugovich won the F2 championship with them just a few years later. Would he be able to show his potential in a true championship? Could he score points, win races, and challenge for the championship? It was definitely his biggest break yet, and he knew it. The 2019 season got underway, and it started absolutely terribly. There's no other way of saying it. Raghunathan was metaphorically miles off in qualifying and literally miles off at the end of pretty much every race. At the first round in Bahrain, he qualified 20th and last, almost 3 seconds off pole. To put that into perspective, Callum Ilott qualified 18th place and was 1.7 seconds off pole. That's how far off the back of the pack he was.
Not good. Not good at all.
In F2, each round has a feature race and a sprint race. It basically meant there was double the potential for disaster for Mahaver. And the worst part of the Bahrain weekend was yet to come. After crossing the finish line of the feature race, most drivers slow down, thank the fans, if there are any in F2, and drive back to the pits. But not the Lord. He went ahead and tried to set the best lap time after the race was over. Obviously, I don't have to explain how incredibly stupid and dangerous this is. It put other drivers and marshals in danger, so the FIA stepped in and handed him a 10-place grid penalty for the next race. This was the first time he got handed penalty points that season, but it definitely wasn't the last. He actually achieved something unheard of by the end of the year, because the amount of penalties this man got in a single season is truly hard to believe. His pace didn't get better either. I mean, the Bahrain weekend wasn't just a one-off, because his sprint races for the rest of the year were just terrible. He finished 19th in Barcelona, 18th in Le Castellet, 18th in Silverstone. You get the picture. The second round of the calendar that year was Baku. Everyone loves Baku, right? Well, everyone except Mahaver. That's because it's most fun when you're at least a small bit competitive, which he, surprise surprise, wasn't. And it's especially helpful when you don't do this. At turn 3, the Lord missed the corner and went down the escape road. Can happen to anyone, right? But what doesn't happen to anyone is getting broadcast on live TV for 2 minutes straight trying to turn your car around. He genuinely couldn't figure out how to turn his car around, even with the help of multiple marshals. The amount of memes and edits that were made on this incident. But in all seriousness, it wasn't just cringe. He was losing practice time, his brakes were overheating and his engine was getting absolutely baked. These cars really don't like reverse gear. So every time you engage it, it wears down the gearbox, and Mahaver engaged his reverse 247 times during this one maneuver. When he got back to the garage, the team wasn't too impressed. He was given some secret insider info on how you do a 3-point turn. Very useful advice, mate. Thanks. To be fair though, it looked like he genuinely didn't know you had to turn the wheel, so hopefully he took it on board. The other drivers picked up on it too, with F2 rival Callum Ilott having a good laugh at the Lord's disposal.
I think we'll do the Mahaver interpretation.
If that's what they thought in public, just imagine the roasting he got behind closed doors. Anyway, I'm not trying to be mean here and handpick the few mistakes he made. If he hit qualifying and suddenly stuck in a brilliant performance, it would have cancelled out the stupidity. But he didn't. In fact, he made things even worse. He qualified last, over 6 seconds off pole. That was his actual pace, over 6 seconds. His teammate Jordan King qualified 5th, over 5 seconds faster than him, in the exact same car. King scored a podium in the feature race too, while Mahavir was nowhere near the points once again. I think you get the picture from the first 2 weekends of the year. Mahavir was off the pace badly, and it wasn't going to get to any better. He did pick up a lot of points though, but unfortunately for him, they were all penalty points. In Baku, for example, he failed to stop at the weighbridge. In Monaco, he caused a crash with Jack Aitken. In Spa, he was speeding under the yellow flag. He basically just caused chaos at every track he went to. The highlight of his year came in Monza though, where he scored a point. Yes, one of the good points this time. But it wasn't because he suddenly locked in and started driving better, it was because almost half the grid didn't finish the race, so he lucked into finishing 10th. It would also be his one and only point in F2. But he did score a hell of a lot of penalty points, 24 in a single season. How on earth a driver scores this many penalty points in a championship with just 12 rounds is beyond me. I mean, that's an average of 2 per round, mate. Insane. His biggest haul came on the 22nd of June 2019 at the feature race at Paul Ricard. He must have lost a dare or something because he seemed to be on a mission to score as many as possible. In that one race alone, he scored 9 penalty points. Yes, 9. He didn't follow the virtual safety car procedure 3 separate times and scored 3 points per infraction. Pure comedy. The FIA thought he was pushing it and banned him from the following round in Austria to try and calm him down a bit. It wasn't the last time there was talk of him being banned though, because he narrowly avoided a second ban in November. Think about it for a second. He racked up the 12 points you need to get a ban, then he got banned, then the points reset and he picked up another 12 points before the season ended. Truly impressive. The final points came in Abu Dhabi for failing to follow the practice start procedure, something the stewards called extremely dangerous. Lucky for him though, it was the last race of the year, so he avoided a second ban. But strangely enough, he didn't get rehired for 2020.
Wow.
So in the end, Mahavir got banned from F2, not once, but twice, in the same season. Most drivers compete in hundreds, if not thousands of races, from junior levels all the way up to Formula 1, and never get banned. But in just 12 rounds, the Lord himself got banned twice. I could talk all day about how ridiculous this is, but it speaks for itself really. After his 2019 F2 campaign, he vanished from motorsports completely for almost 2 years, but his biggest challenge was yet to come. Somehow, and I truly don't understand how the hell this actually happened, Mahavir managed to get himself behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car. And I don't mean some F1 car that a friend let him drive. I mean, in 2021, he was called up as a test driver for Alfa Romeo. He drove the C38 at the Hungaroring on the same day as future F2 champ Théo Pourchaire. But it's fair to say that he didn't step up to the challenge very well, as he was almost 2 seconds slower than Pourchaire. The lack of pace didn't seem to put McLaren off though, and in 2023 they too gave him a test. This time he drove the MCL 35, their 2020 car at Portimao. I'm pretty sure he brought a fair bit of cash along to fund his big day out. Well played, Zach. So yeah, Raghunathan definitely made his mark on motorsports, especially in the Formula 2 championship. It wasn't the sort of come in as a rookie and win the title mark like Charles Leclerc or Oscar Piastri made. He might not have been the best, scrap that, he definitely was the worst, but at least he left a legacy. His on-track antics gave us some of the most dismal but hilarious moments ever. And even though we didn't get many brilliant racing highlights from him, we did get plenty of memes, which is basically the same thing. But he didn't give up. He's racing an Italian GT at the minute, so if you ever fancy catching the GOAT doing a few laps, you know where to find him. At the end of the day, it's not that clear how he even got as high as Formula 2 in testing F1 cars. There's plenty of rumours out there that he had massive funding, People say his career was paid for by a huge Indian car company from the very start, and then by an Italian motor company. To be honest though, there's no in-depth and trustworthy information about it, so I'm not going to fill in the blanks to make the story sound even crazier than it is. The one thing we do know is that he was terrible. He shouldn't have had the chance to drive an F2 in the first place. And don't even get me started on having the privilege of driving an F1 car twice. There's so many drivers out there with insane skill, talent, and potential that deserve those seats 100 times more than the Lord. So it's always frustrating to see these opportunities wasted on someone who was never going to make it to F1 in the first place. But if the rumors about his massive funding are true, maybe he's closer to Lance Stroll than we thought. We sure know a lot more about Lance's backstory than we do Raghunathan's. How he started, how he literally bought his way to winning the championship, paying off teammates, and even buying whole teams. If you haven't already, watch this one next. And as always, thank you for watching.